Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the HSS Meridian and watched a world die. Velara 7 burned beneath them. The blue-green planet that she had visited so many times, where she had laughed and shared meals and called friends by name, was now covered in black smoke and orange fire. The oceans boiled at the edges of massive craters. Cities that once glowed with soft light at night were now dark graves. "Captain," her sensor officer said, his voice breaking, I'm reading no life signs in the major population centers. None." Elena gripped the railing in front of her. Her knuckles went white. "Keep scanning. There have to be survivors. There have to be." But she knew. Deep in her heart, she already knew. The Velan were gone. She remembered the first time humanity met them. It was 12 years ago, when Earth's first deep space expedition stumbled into Velan territory. The galaxy had not been kind to humans. The Galactic Council, that ancient alliance of 12 powerful species, had looked at humanity and seen only primitive creatures from a small world. They refused Earth's request for membership. They denied humans access to trade routes. They treated humanity like insects that had wandered into a palace. But the Velan were different. They were gentle beings, amphibious and graceful, with large dark eyes that held ancient wisdom. Their civilization was older than most council species, but they had never wanted power. They wanted knowledge. They wanted friendship. They wanted to understand the universe and share that understanding with others. When the Velan met humans, they saw something the council missed. They saw potential. They saw courage. They saw a young species that refused to bow, that kept reaching for the stars even when the galaxy pushed them down. The Velan welcomed humanity with open arms. They shared technology freely. They gave humans star charts that would have taken centuries to create alone. They taught humans about galactic politics, about which species could be trusted and which could not. They warned humanity about the Council's arrogance and cruelty. More than that, they offered friendship. Real friendship. The kind where you visit each other's worlds and learn each other's songs and stand beside each other when times get hard. Elena had made many Velan friends over the years. Ambassador Keth, who loved human poetry and could recite Shakespeare from memory. Scientist Vela, who worked with human researchers to develop new medical treatments. Elder Torum, who said that humans reminded him of the Velan when they were young, full of fire and hope and stubborn determination. Now they were all dead. "Captain," her communications officer said, "we're picking up Council transponder signals. Multiple warships. They're still in orbit on the far side of the planet." Elena's blood went cold, then hot. "They're still here?" "Yes, ma'am. 12 ships. Dramari command vessel leading. They're not hiding. They're not even running. They're just waiting. Waiting, like predators who had finished their kill and were resting before moving on. They had murdered billions of innocent people, and they were not even trying to hide what they had done." "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the surface," the comm officer said. "It's weak. Coming from the northern continent, there's a shelter there, one of the deep bunkers the Velan built centuries ago for natural disasters." Elena turned fast. "Survivors? Maybe. The signal is very weak, but it's definitely Velan technology. Helm, take us down. Combat stations, but do not engage the Council ships unless they fire first. We're here to save lives, not start a war." She paused. "Not yet." The Meridian descended through smoke and ash. Elena watched through the viewport as they passed over what had once been the city of Velara Prime. She had walked those streets. She had eaten in those restaurants. She had watched Velan children play in those parks. Now there was nothing but glass and fire. The Council had used planet killers. Weapons so terrible that the galaxy had banned them centuries ago. But apparently those rules only applied to species the Council cared about. They landed near the bunker entrance. Elena led the rescue team herself. She would not send others to do what she could do with her own hands. The bunker door was sealed. Radiation levels were dangerous but not deadly. They cut through the door with plasma torches and pushed inside. The shelter was dark. Emergency lights flickered. The air smelled of smoke and fear and something else. The sweet, sad smell of Velan blood. They found bodies. Dozens of them. Velan who had made it to the shelter but died of their wounds. Elena forced herself to keep moving, to keep searching. Then they heard it, a weak voice calling out in the Velen language. They found him in the deepest part of the shelter. Elder Torum. Elena recognized him immediately, though he was burned and broken and barely alive. He had been over 300 years old, one of the most respected voices in Valen society. Now he lay dying in the dark, surrounded by the bodies of his people. Elena knelt beside him. She took his hand. His skin was cold and dry, not the healthy, cool moisture of a living Valen. Elder Torum, she said softly, I'm here. Help is here. His large eyes opened. They were clouded with pain, but she saw recognition there. Elena Vasquez, the human captain. Yes, we came as fast as we could. We're going to get you out of here. He made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. Too late. For me, for all of us. But you came. You came. That is, enough. What happened? Elena asked, though she already knew. Why did they do this? Torum's grip tightened on her hand. The council, they came to us, demanded we break our alliance with Earth, said humans were dangerous, said we must choose between the council and your people. And you refused. Of course we refused. A tiny smile crossed his dying face. You are our friends. The Velan do not abandon friends. We told them no. We told them we would stand with humanity, no matter the cost. Elena felt tears running down her face. They killed you. They killed all of you, because you wouldn't betray us. They wanted to send a message, Torum said, to Earth, to the galaxy. They wanted everyone to see what happens to those who stand with humans. They want to isolate you, starve you, make you weak. Then they will come for Earth. His breathing grew more shallow. Elena held his hand tighter. Elder Torum, I am so sorry. I am so sorry we weren't here. I am so sorry we couldn't protect you. No. His voice found strength for one last moment. Do not apologize. You are not the ones who did this. But Elena, promise me something. Anything. Do not let our deaths be meaningless. Do not let them make you into monsters. The council wants you to hate, wants you to burn everything in revenge. Do not become them. Build something better. Honor us by being better than they are. His eyes closed. His grip went slack. Elder Torum, 300 years of wisdom and kindness, was gone. Elena stayed there for a long moment, holding his hand. Then she gently laid it across his chest and stood. Record everything, she told her team. Every body, every wound, every piece of evidence. The galaxy will know what happened here. Earth will know. They spent 6 hours documenting the massacre. They found messages from families saying goodbye. They found children's toys buried in rubble. They found the last testament of the Velan government, a declaration that they chose friendship over survival, that they would not betray humanity even in death. Elena transmitted everything to Earth, every image, every recording, every terrible truth. She knew the whole world would watch. She knew humanity would see what the Council did to their only friends in the galaxy. She knew what would come next. The Meridian left Valara 7 as the Council ships finally moved away, their message delivered. Elena stood on the bridge and watched the burning world grow smaller in the viewport. Captain, her first officer said quietly, what do we do now? We go home, Elena said, and we tell them, all of them. Every person on Earth needs to see this. Every person needs to understand. 2 weeks later, she stood in the crowd as Earth's president addressed humanity. Every screen on the planet showed the same image. The president standing before a photo of Valara 7 before and after the massacre. They killed our friends, the president said. They murdered billions of innocent people to send us a message. They want us to know that anyone who stands with humanity will burn. They want us to be afraid. They want us to bow. The president's voice hardened. The Valen chose death rather than betray us. They gave everything because they believed humanity was worth standing beside. They believed we were worth dying for. Elena felt the anger around her. She felt it in herself, a cold, hard rage that demanded blood. The council thinks we are weak, the president continued. They think we will cower and submit. They think they can do this terrible thing and face no consequences. They are wrong. The crowd was silent, waiting. The Valens sent their own message when they refused to abandon us. Now it is our turn. We will answer the council. We will show them what humanity does when our friends are murdered. We will show them what happens when they mistake our patience for weakness. The president leaned forward. They sent us a message written in blood. Now we will send our reply. Elena thought of Elder Torum, of his last words. Do not become them. She would honor those words, but first Earth had a debt to pay, and humanity always paid its debts. The galaxy waited for humanity to scream. 3 months after the massacre of Valara 7, Earth went silent. Human ships withdrew from every trading post, every diplomatic station, every corner of known space. Transmissions from Earth stopped. The busy chatter of human communications that had filled certain frequencies for years simply disappeared. The galaxy noticed, and the galaxy made assumptions. On Thesara Prime, jewel of the Galactic Council, High Chancellor Vorath of the Dramari stood before the assembled rulers of the 12 dominant species. The Great Chamber was ancient, built 10,000 years ago when the first council species discovered faster-than-light travel. Its walls were carved with the history of galactic civilization, a history that humans had never been invited to join. Vorath was tall and thin, his gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. His species, the Dramari, had led the council for 3,000 years. They were cold and calculating, masters of political manipulation. They had orchestrated the massacre of the Velen as easily as a human might swat an insect. The human problem is solved, Vorath announced, his voice echoing through the ancient hall. As predicted, they have retreated to their pathetic little world. Their one ally is dust and ash. They have no friends, no resources, no hope. The other council leaders murmured approval. The Krix ambassador, a massive reptilian creature, showed his teeth in what passed for a smile among his people. How long before we move against Earth itself? Patience, Vorath said. Let them suffer first. Let them starve. Their economy depended on Valan trade. Without it, they will struggle. In 6 months, perhaps a year, they will come crawling to us. They will beg for mercy, and we will grant it. At a price. What price? Asked the Selenian representative, a being of living crystal who glittered in the chamber's light. Vorath's thin lips curved into something like a smile. Permanent servitude. They will become a labor species, working in our mines and factories. Their world will become a resource extraction point. Their people will serve the council for the next 1,000 years. This is the price of defying us. The chamber filled with sounds of agreement. This was how the galaxy worked. The strong ruled, the weak served. Species that forgot their place were reminded, sometimes gently, sometimes with fire. Humanity had forgotten its place. The Velen had paid the price for encouraging them. Soon, Earth would learn the same lesson. But the council did not know what was happening on the silent world they had dismissed. In a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, Admiral James Okonkwo stood before a wall of screens showing things that officially did not exist. Ships, hundreds of them, thousands of them, filling hidden shipyards carved into asteroids, concealed in the dark spaces between planets, buried beneath the ice moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Humanity had been busy. Project Prometheus, James said to the gathered military leaders. 30 years of preparation, every human government working in secret, every resource we could spare, hidden from galactic eyes. He was 60 years old, his hair gray, his face lined with decades of service. He had been a young lieutenant when humanity first made contact with the galaxy. He had seen the contempt in alien eyes. He had watched the council reject humanity again and again, and he had known with absolute certainty that one day the galaxy would try to destroy them. He had spent his entire career preparing for that day. The council thinks we are primitive, James continued. They think our technology is centuries behind theirs. They think we showed them everything we had when we first stumbled into their space. He allowed himself a small smile. They were wrong. General Chen of the Chinese Space Force leaned forward. How wrong, Admiral? James pressed a button. The screens changed, showing weapon systems that made the gathered leaders gasp. Railguns capable of firing projectiles at 1/10 the speed of light. The Council uses energy shields because everyone uses energy weapons. Our projectiles will punch through those shields like paper. Another image appeared. Electronic warfare systems that can infiltrate Council ship computers and turn them against each other. Their networks are old and arrogant. They never bothered to update their security because no one ever challenged them. Another image. Fighter craft designed for human pilots. The Council species don't use fighters much. Their reflexes are too slow. Their bodies too fragile for high-G maneuvers. Human pilots can pull 12 Gs and keep fighting. Our fighters will fly circles around them. General Patel of the Indian Defense Force shook her head in amazement. How did we hide all this? The Council has spies everywhere. We used their arrogance against them, James said. They were so certain we were primitive that they never looked closely. They saw what they expected to see, a young species struggling to survive. They never imagined we might be playing a longer game. The president of the United Earth Council spoke for the first time. Admiral, this is impressive, but the Council has thousands of ships. They control hundreds of worlds. Even with superior technology, can we actually win? James turned to face her. His eyes were hard. Madam President, 3 months ago, I had a friend named Keth. He was a Velen ambassador. He taught me to appreciate poetry. He showed me that not everyone in the galaxy was cruel. He gave me hope that humanity might find its place among the stars through friendship rather than force. He paused. Keth recorded a final message before he died. The Council ships gave people 12 hours to evacuate, but they jammed all transportation. It was a cruel joke. Keth used those hours to send messages to everyone he loved, including me. James's voice grew quiet. He told me not to let hatred consume us. He told me to be better than the Council. He told me that the greatest victory would not be destroying our enemies, but proving that humanity deserved the friendship the Velen gave us. The room was silent, but he also said something else. He said that sometimes to build something better, you first have to stop something terrible. The Council will not negotiate. They do not understand anything but force. If we want peace, real, lasting peace, we have to show them that humanity cannot be bullied, cannot be threatened, cannot be destroyed. He straightened. Can we win? Yes. Our intelligence shows the Council plans to attack Earth in 6 months. They expect to find a broken species begging for mercy. Instead, they will find us waiting. But I don't want to wait. I want to strike first. I want to take the war to them before they bring it to us. I want to end this threat forever. The president studied him for a long moment. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? A direct assault on Thessera Prime. Cut off the head of the snake. Capture the Council leadership. Destroy their ability to make war. James paused. And then, this is the important part, we show the galaxy that humanity is not like the Council. We do not massacre civilians. We do not burn worlds. We fight clean, we win decisively, and then we offer peace. General Chen frowned. You want to conquer the Council, and then let them go? I want to break their power and build something better. The Velen died because they believed humanity was worth believing in. I will not prove them wrong by becoming the very thing that killed them. The debate lasted for hours. There were those who wanted simple vengeance. Glass, Thessera Prime. Kill every Dramari. Make the Council suffer as the Velen had suffered. Their anger was understandable. It was justified. But in the end, Elder Torum's words echoed louder than rage. The president made her decision. We strike Thessera Prime. We end the Council's military threat. And then we show the galaxy what humanity really is. She looked at Admiral Okonkwo. Don't let us down, James. Don't let the Velen down. I won't, he promised. 3 weeks later, the largest human fleet ever assembled departed through hidden jump points that the Council had never detected. 4,000 ships, carrying 500,000 soldiers, commanded by officers who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the flagship HSS Retribution. Around him, the stars streaked and blurred as the fleet entered hyperspace. On his desk in his quarters sat a small object, a Veland memory crystal containing Ambassador Keth's last message. James had listened to it every night since the massacre. He knew every word by heart. Do not become them, James. That is all they would have wanted for you, to become them. Be better. Build something better. He intended to honor those words, but first there was a debt to pay. The galaxy thought humanity had gone quiet out of fear. They were about to learn the truth. Earth had been quiet because Earth was preparing, and now humanity was coming. The first warning came too late. Deep space sensors around Thesara Prime detected the human fleet only 30 minutes before it arrived. This should have been impossible. The Council's detection network was the finest in the galaxy, built over thousands of years, capable of spotting a single ship from light years away. But the human fleet used engine signatures the sensors didn't recognize. They approached from angles that nobody watched. They moved with a coordination and speed that the lazy, confident Council defenders had never imagined. By the time the alarm sounded on Thesara Prime, the sky was already full of human ships. Admiral James Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the HSS Retribution and watched the Council scramble. Their fleet was large but scattered, comfortable in orbit around a world that had never been threatened. Their crews were slow to battle stations. Their commanders wasted precious minutes demanding confirmation that this was really happening. All ships, this is Admiral Okonkwo, James said calmly into the fleet-wide channel. Execute Operation Thunderhead. Primary objective is the planetary defense grid. Secondary objective is the Council fleet. Tertiary objective is ground installation capture. Rules of engagement are in effect. Military targets only. Minimize civilian casualties. Let's show them what humanity can do. 4,000 human ships moved as one. The Battle of Thesara began. Captain Elena Vasquez led Strike Squadron 7 toward the Council's primary defense station. It was a massive structure, bristling with weapons, designed to repel any attack. The Council had built it 1,000 years ago and upgraded it dozens of times. They considered it invincible. Elena thought of Velara 7 as she approached. She thought of the burning cities and the dead children and Elder Torm's final words. Her hands were steady on the controls. Squadron 7, armed torpedoes. We're going in fast and hard. Captain, her wingman said, their shields are at full power. Our sensors show they can absorb. Their shields are designed for energy weapons, Elena interrupted. Watch and learn. The defense station opened fire. Green energy beams lanced through space. The same weapons the Council had used to glass Velan cities. But human ships were fast and small and piloted by people who could withstand maneuvers that would kill most galactic species. Elena rolled her ship through the barrage, letting the beams pass close enough to scorch paint, but never close enough to hit. Torpedo range in 10 seconds, her weapons officer reported. All torpedoes, target their shield generators. Fire on my mark. The Council defenders saw the torpedoes coming and almost laughed. Torpedoes were an ancient weapon. Energy shields had made them useless centuries ago. Then the torpedoes hit. They weren't carrying explosives. They were solid projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails built into human ships. They didn't try to burn through the shields. They simply punched through them. The shields were designed to disperse energy, not stop physical objects moving at a fraction of light speed. The defense station shuddered. Explosions bloomed across its surface as torpedoes tore through armor that had never faced such weapons. Direct hits on shield generators, Elena's weapons officer shouted. Their shields are failing. Squadron 7, follow me in. Finish it. Human fighters swarmed the crippled station. Precision strikes took out weapons emplacements and power nodes. Within 15 minutes, the invincible defense station was a drifting wreck. Across the battle space, similar scenes played out. Council warships found their shields useless against human projectiles. Their computer systems went haywire as human electronic warfare programs infiltrated networks that had never needed strong security. Their fighters, piloted by species that couldn't handle high-G turns, were outmaneuvered and destroyed by human pilots who flew like demons. High Chancellor Voreth watched the disaster from his palace on Thesara Prime. His thin gray hands trembled as reports flooded in. The 7th Fleet is destroyed. The 9th Fleet is in full retreat. Ground defenses at Capital Station have been overwhelmed. Human soldiers are securing the spaceport. How is this possible? Vorath demanded. They are primitives. Children playing with technology they barely understand. His military advisor, a scarred Dramari general, shook his head. They were never primitives, High Chancellor. We saw what we wanted to see. We believed our own assumptions. They were hiding their true strength all along. Then why didn't our spies discover this? Because they expected us to spy. Every piece of technology they showed the galaxy, every clumsy ship and primitive weapon, it was all theater. They were watching us the whole time, learning our weaknesses, preparing for exactly this moment. Vorath felt something he had not experienced in 300 years of life: fear. In orbit, Admiral Okonkwo directed the final phase of the battle. The Council fleet was broken. Those ships that hadn't been destroyed were surrendering, their crews shocked and terrified by what they had witnessed. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, we have achieved space superiority. Ground forces have secured the primary government complex. Casualty reports are coming in. Military casualties on both sides are heavy, but civilian casualties are minimal. Minimal, James repeated. Good, make sure it stays that way. I want medical teams deployed to Council population centers. Anyone injured in the crossfire gets treatment, regardless of species. Set up emergency shelters. Coordinate with local authorities for food and water distribution. His officers looked at him with surprise. This was not how Victoria's fleets behaved. Sir, his first officer said carefully, standard procedure after conquering an enemy world would be to secure resources and establish control through force. Standard procedure for the Council, James replied. We're not the Council. We didn't come here to conquer. We came here to stop a threat and build something better. That starts now. Ground forces moved through Thesara Prime's capital city. Human soldiers walked streets that had never seen an invading army. The Council had ruled this world for 10,000 years. They had never imagined it could fall. Citizens hid in their homes, waiting for the massacres to begin. Waiting for the fires that had consumed Velara 7 to consume them. Instead, they saw human soldiers helping injured civilians. They saw human medics treating Dramari children. They saw human commanders working with local emergency services to restore power and water to damaged areas. They did not understand. The Council captured its enemies and enslaved them. The Council burned worlds that defied them. The Council had murdered billions of Velan to send a message. Why weren't the humans doing the same? High Chancellor Vorath found out when human soldiers arrived at his palace. He expected to be executed, perhaps tortured first. That was what he would have done to a defeated enemy leader. Instead, they put him in restraints and brought him to Admiral Okonkwo. James looked at the creature who had ordered the death of the Velan. Vorath was tall but thin, ancient and withered, his gray skin hanging loose on his bones. His dark eyes held fear and confusion. High Chancellor Vorath of the Dramari, James said, you are under arrest for crimes against sentience, including the unlawful destruction of Velara 7 and the genocide of the Velan species. You will be held for trial. You will be treated humanely. You will receive legal representation. Vorath stared at him. You're not going to kill me? No. You're not going to destroy Thesara Prime? No. Why? The question burst out of him, genuine confusion overwhelming his fear. We murdered your allies, billions of them. We planned to enslave your entire species. Why would you show mercy? James was quiet for a moment. He thought of Ambassador Keth. He thought of Elder Torm's final words to Captain Vasquez. He thought of everything humanity could become and everything they must refuse to be. Because we're not you, he said simply. You taught us what you are. Now we'll show you what we are. Vorath was led away, still not understanding. That night, Admiral Okonkwo addressed the galaxy. His message was broadcast on every frequency, translated into every language, heard by every species who had ever trembled under Council rule. This is Admiral James Okonkwo of United Earth Command. Today, human forces achieved victory over the Galactic Council at Thesara Prime. The Council's military capability has been neutralized. Their leadership has been detained to face justice for their crimes. He paused. You expect us to become your new masters. You expect fire and chains and a new tyranny to replace the old. But humanity did not fight this war for conquest. We fought it because the Council murdered our friends, our only friends in a galaxy that rejected us. We fought it because they would have done the same to Earth if we hadn't stopped them. His voice hardened. But we will not become them. The Valen died rather than betray humanity. They believed we were worth that sacrifice. They believed we could be better than the Council. We will prove them right. He leaned forward. In the coming days, we will announce the formation of a new galactic assembly. Not an empire, not a tyranny. A true alliance of equals, where every species has a voice and no one is subject to another. Where strength is used to protect, not to dominate. Where friendship matters more than fear. He straightened. The Council's reign of terror is over. What comes next is up to all of us. Humanity extends its hand in peace to every species willing to take it. We have proven we can make war. Now let us prove we can make something better. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, billions of beings from hundreds of species watched and listened. Some did not believe it. Surely this was a trick. Surely the humans would reveal their true nature soon. But on Thessera Prime, Council citizens watched human soldiers share their rations with hungry children. They watched human doctors treat the wounded without asking what species they belonged to. They watched a conquering army behave with a mercy that the galaxy had never seen. And slowly, carefully, they began to hope. The galaxy waited for humanity to show its true face. 2 months after the Battle of Thessara, the war was over. Council military forces across known space had either surrendered or been defeated. Human soldiers occupied key installations on 100 worlds. The old order that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years was broken. And still, humanity did not act like conquerors. On Earth, the debate raged. "They murdered the Valen!" Senator Martinez shouted in the World Assembly chamber. "Billions of innocent people burned alive to send us a message. And now we're supposed to just forgive them? Show mercy? They deserve to suffer." The chamber erupted in agreement. Millions of citizens watched the broadcast from their homes, many of them nodding along. The anger was real. The grief was real. The desire for vengeance burned in human hearts across the planet. President Adora Okafor waited for the noise to die down before responding. "Senator, no one is asking you to forgive. No one is asking anyone to forget. The Council's crimes will be recorded in history forever. Those responsible will face justice. But justice is not the same as vengeance." "What's the difference?" Martinez demanded. "Justice removes a threat and builds something better. Vengeance creates new victims and new enemies." President Okafor's voice was steady. "The Council killed the Velen because they were afraid that humanity would grow strong, make allies, challenge their power. If we massacre Council species now, we prove their fear was justified. We become exactly what they said we were." She stepped forward, addressing not just the Senate, but the billions watching at home. "Elder Torum of the Valan used his dying breath to warn us. He said the Council wanted us to become monsters. He begged us to be better. The Valan sacrificed everything because they believed humanity deserved their friendship. If we answer their sacrifice with genocide, what did they die for?" The chamber fell silent. "I know it hurts," the president continued. "I know you want the Council to suffer. I want that too sometimes late at night when I remember Ambassador Keth's face and know I'll never see him smile again. But then I ask myself, what would he want? What would the Velen want?" She took a deep breath. "They would want us to build something better, something worthy of their sacrifice. That's what I intend to do. And I'm asking all of you to help me." The vote came the next day. It was close, closer than anyone expected. But in the end, humanity chose mercy over massacre. The new Galactic Assembly was announced 3 weeks later. It would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Every species would have equal representation. There would be no ruling council, no dominant power, no first among equals. Decisions would be made by consensus or vote. Military force would be used only for defense and peacekeeping, never for conquest. Most importantly, there would be protections for the vulnerable. No species could be exploited or enslaved. No world could be burned to send a message. The strong would protect the weak instead of preying on them. The galaxy received this news with disbelief. "It's a trick," said the Crick's ambassador. "Now a prisoner awaiting trial. They'll change their minds, all conquerors do. Once they taste power, they always want more." "They're weak," said a Selenian analyst. "They won their war through luck and surprise. When they try to maintain their empire, they'll fail. Then the old powers will return." "They're lying," said a Dramari politician. "This equality they promise is just another form of control. They'll find ways to dominate us while pretending to be fair." But on Thessera Prime, the occupation continued to defy expectations. Human administrators worked alongside local governments instead of replacing them. Human businesses invested in rebuilding damaged infrastructure instead of extracting resources. Human cultural ambassadors learned local languages and customs instead of imposing Earth's ways. And slowly, opinion began to shift. Admiral Okonkwo returned to Thessera Prime 6 months after the battle. He walked through streets that had once burned with war and now bustled with commerce. Dremary children played in parks where human soldiers had once fought. Shops displayed both human and local goods. The fear was fading, replaced by something that might, in time, become trust. He visited the detention facility where High Chancellor Vorath awaited trial. The former ruler of the galaxy sat in a clean, comfortable cell, reading documents related to his case. He had lost weight but was otherwise healthy. He was being treated fairly, better than he had ever treated anyone. "Admiral Okonkwo," Vorath said as James entered. "Come to gloat?" "No." James sat across from him. "I came to understand." "Understand what?" "You, your people. Why you did what you did." Vorath laughed bitterly. "We did it because we could. Because that is how the galaxy works. The strong dominate. The weak serve. We crushed the Valen because they defied us, and because their destruction would make others afraid. And did you ever think that was wrong?" "Wrong?" Vorath seemed genuinely confused by the question. "There is no wrong or right. There is only power and weakness. We had power. We used it. That is the natural order of things." James studied him for a long moment. "The Valen were older than your species. They had technology and knowledge you couldn't imagine. But they chose not to dominate. They chose to share, to teach, to make friends instead of subjects. And look where it got them," Vorath said. "Dead. Dust. A failed species that couldn't survive." "They survived in the only way that mattered to them," James replied. "They survived in the hearts of those they helped, in the values they passed on, in the species who will build a better galaxy because of what the Valan taught them." He leaned forward. "You burned their world and killed their people, but you couldn't destroy what they stood for. Right now, today, the galaxy is changing because of them. The new assembly exists because the Valens showed humanity what friendship could mean. In 1,000 years, no one will remember your name, but the Valen will be remembered forever." Vorath's face twisted. "Pretty words, but when you're old and tired of playing peacemaker, you'll become what we were. You'll use your power the same way we did. It's inevitable." "Maybe," James stood. "But I don't think so. I think humans are better than that. I think the Velans saw something in us that you never could." He walked to the door. "Enjoy your trial, Chancellor. It will be fair. That's more than you ever gave anyone else." He left Vorath alone with his confusion. The first session of the new Galactic Assembly convened on a space station orbiting Thessera Prime. Representatives from 200 species gathered in a chamber designed for equality. Circular, with every seat at the same level, no throne for any ruler. At the center of the chamber stood a memorial, a sculpture made from Velen crystal, depicting two hands reaching toward each other. One was amphibian, Valen. One was human. Beneath it, words were carved in every known language. "They stood with us. We stand for them." Captain Elena Vasquez, now a delegate from Earth, took her seat among the other representatives. She looked at the memorial and remembered Elder Torum's face, his words, his sacrifice. President Okafor addressed the assembly. "We gather here as equals, not because any of us is without fault, but because we choose to be better than our faults. Not because the past can be erased, but because the future can be different. The old ways built an empire of fear. We will build a community of hope. She gestured to the empty seat near the human delegation, a seat that would never be filled. That chair belongs to the Valen. It will remain empty as long as this assembly exists, to remind us of what was lost and why we must never let it happen again. Every species that joins us, every law we pass, every conflict we resolve through words instead of weapons, all of it is their legacy. All of it is proof that their sacrifice meant something. The assembly voted. Humanity took no special position of authority. Earth received one vote like every other world. The message was clear. Humans had not fought this war to rule the galaxy, but to free it. In his cell, Varath watched the ceremony on a screen. He saw species that had trembled under council rule now speaking as equals. He saw former enemies working together. He saw something he had never believed possible. And for the first time, he wondered if he had been wrong. Not about power. Power was real. But maybe about what power was for. Maybe about what strength really meant. He thought about it for a long time after the broadcast ended. He thought about it for years. He never fully understood. But he came closer than anyone expected. 20 years passed. The galaxy that emerged from the ashes of the Council was not perfect. No civilization built by imperfect beings ever could be. There were disputes. There were conflicts. There were moments when the old ways threatened to return. But the new Galactic Assembly held together. Species that had been enemies for centuries learned to negotiate instead of fight. Worlds that had been exploited for generations began to heal. A generation grew up knowing nothing but peace. Young beings who learned about the Council era in history classes and couldn't quite believe that things had ever been so cruel. Admiral Elena Vasquez returned to Valara 7 on the 20th anniversary of the massacre. She was older now, her black hair streaked with gray, her face lined with decades of service and loss and purpose. She had risen to lead Earth's stellar defense force, then retired to spend her final years doing something more important. Bearing witness, the planet had transformed. Where cities had burned, new ones rose. Not human cities, not copies of the old Valen architecture, but something new. Buildings designed by joint teams of engineers from a dozen species, each contributing their own ideas and traditions. The result was strange and beautiful, a living symbol of what cooperation could achieve. The oceans were clean again. The forests had regrown. Wildlife had returned, including species that had been thought extinct. 20 years of dedicated restoration by a galaxy that wanted to prove the Velen sacrifice had meant something, and the Velen themselves had returned. Not all of them, of course. Billions had died. An ancient culture, 10,000 years of history and art and science had been nearly erased. That loss could never be undone. But there had been survivors. Velen living on other worlds, serving on distant stations, traveling far from home when the Council struck. A few 100,000 had escaped the massacre. They had scattered across the galaxy, lost and grieving, certain that their species was finished. Then they had watched humans refuse to take revenge. They had watched humanity build an assembly where Velen survivors could speak as equals. They had watched Earth pour resources into restoring their homeworld, not as a debt to be repaid, but as a gift freely given. And slowly, carefully, they had come home. Elena walked through the streets of New Valara City. Velen children ran past her, laughing, chasing a ball through the square. Some of them had been born on this restored world, knowing it only as home. They would grow up without memories of fire and death. She smiled, remembering when these streets had been ash. "Admiral Vasquez." She turned. A young Velen male approached her, barely 30 years old. He was tall for his species, his scales a deep blue-green, his large eyes filled with curiosity. "I am Keth," he said. "Keth the Younger. I was named for the ambassador who was my friend," Elena finished. "Yes, I knew him. My parents told me stories about him, about you, about what humans did after the massacre." The young Velen hesitated. "May I ask you something?" "Of course. Why?" The word came out raw, a question that had haunted him his entire life. "Why didn't humanity take revenge? The Council murdered billions of us. They tried to destroy our species completely. You had the power to do the same to them. Why didn't you?" Elena was quiet for a moment. She looked at the memorial in the center of the square. The same design that stood in the assembly chamber, two hands reaching toward each other, human and Valen. I was there when Elder Torum died, she said finally. He was the last survivor I found in the shelter beneath Valara Prime. He was broken, burned, dying, but he wasn't angry. He wasn't calling for vengeance. He was worried. Worried about us. About humans. About what we might become. He said the council wanted us to be monsters. They wanted us to prove that humanity was exactly as dangerous as they feared. If we had burned their worlds in revenge, we would have justified everything they ever said about us. She paused. And we would have dishonored everyone who died believing we were better than that. Young Keth absorbed this. My parents said the Valen chose death rather than betray humanity. That the council gave them a chance to live, and they refused. They did. They died for an idea. The idea that friendship mattered more than survival. That some things were worth sacrificing everything for. Elena felt old tears prick her eyes. If we had become conquerors, what would their sacrifice have meant? Just a footnote in the story of how humanity built another empire. But because we chose differently, because we built something better. She gestured at the city around them, the children playing, the shops bustling with trade, the research centers where Valen and human scientists worked side by side, the gardens where species from across the galaxy came to learn and remember. Because we chose differently, their sacrifice built this. A galaxy where friendship matters, where the strong protect the weak, where someone like you can grow up in peace. Young Keth was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, will you come to the memorial ceremony? I'm giving a speech about what the Valen gave and what we received in return. I would be honored if you were there. I wouldn't miss it. The ceremony took place at sunset, when Valara 7's twin moons rose over the restored ocean. Thousands gathered, Valen, human, and representatives from dozens of other species. Admiral James Okonkwo, now 80 years old and using a cane, had made the journey from Earth to be present. Young Keth spoke first. 20 years ago, the Galactic Council tried to erase my people from existence. They failed, but they did not fail because we fought back. We couldn't. They failed because our friends remembered us, because humanity took our sacrifice and turned it into something beautiful, because the galaxy learned, through our blood, that there was a better way. He looked at the crowd. I never knew the old Valen. I was born after the restoration began. But I know what they believed, because those beliefs survived their death. They believed that friendship was more valuable than safety, that standing with allies was more important than bowing to enemies, that some things were worth dying for. His voice strengthened, and humanity proved them right, not just by winning the war, but by winning the peace. By choosing mercy when vengeance would have been easier, by building an assembly instead of an empire, by coming here, year after year, to help us heal. He turned to the memorial, a massive wall of black stone, inscribed with the names of every Valan who had died. The list went on forever. This monument holds the names of our dead, but their true monument is all around us. It is the galaxy that exists because they made their choice and humanity honored it. Admiral Okonkwo spoke next. His voice was weaker than it had once been, but it still carried. I remember when we first discovered the Valen weren't alone in welcoming us. After the war, species we had never met reached out to humanity. They had been watching. They had seen what we did and what we refused to do. And they decided that maybe, just maybe, we could be trusted. He smiled. 20 years later, the Assembly has 300 member species. Wars that burned for centuries have ended. Children are growing up on worlds that knew only fear for generations. And it started here, with a sacrifice made by beings we will never be able to thank. He looked at the wall of names. I used to know someone on that wall, Ambassador Keth. He recorded a message for me before he died. He asked me not to let hatred define us. He asked us to be better than the Council. He believed in humanity when we weren't sure we believed in ourselves. James's voice grew thick. I listened to that message every day for years. Every time we faced a hard choice, revenge or mercy, domination or partnership, fear or hope, I asked myself what Keth would want. And then I tried to give it to him. He straightened despite his age. The Valens' gift to humanity wasn't just their friendship or their technology or their warning about the Council. It was the example they set. They showed us what it meant to stand for something greater than survival. They showed us that the measure of a species isn't its power, but what it does with that power. He turned to face the crowd. We could have built an empire on their graves. Instead, we built a community. We could have ruled through fear. Instead, we lead through service. We could have become what killed them. Instead, we became what they believed we could be. Elena watched as the ceremony concluded. She watched Velen and human embrace, watched species that had once been enemies lay flowers at the memorial together, watched children chase each other through the square without any memory of war. She thought of Elder Torum, of Ambassador Keth, of everyone whose name was carved in that black stone. We did it, she whispered. We didn't become them. We built something better. A young human diplomat approached her, a man in his 30s with kind eyes. She recognized him, the son of Lieutenant Chen, who had died in the Battle of Thesara. Admiral Vasquez, he said, the Assembly just voted to admit 3 new species, including one from a system we just discovered last year. Good, Elena smiled. The galaxy is still growing. There's something else. The Valen representative made a motion. They want to name the newest starbase after you. Elena laughed. Tell them I'm honored, but there are better people to name things after. Name it after Keth. Name it after Torum. Name it after anyone who died believing we'd keep our promise. The young diplomat nodded. I'll tell them. He left. Elena stood alone for a moment, looking at the memorial, at the city, at the stars coming out in the darkening sky. The Council had sent a message written in blood. They had said, this is what happens to those who stand with humanity. This is the price of friendship. Humanity had sent a different message, one written not in fire, but in what came after the fire, in mercy shown to defeated enemies, in justice instead of vengeance, in a galaxy rebuilt on hope instead of fear. The Velan had died for that message, and humanity had spent 20 years proving it was true. Elena Vasquez, old now, tired now, at the end of her long service, looked up at the stars. We kept our promise, she said. We built something better. And in the silence of the memorial, she could almost hear the Velen answer. Not with words, with something deeper, with peace.